Okay, so the book that I chose to read was Running Scared: The Life and Treacherous Times of Las Vegas Casino King Steve Wynn. The book wasn't actually written by Steve Wynn, it was written by an author and journalist named John L. Smith, who has written other books, and he's also a journalist for the Las Vegas Review Journal. He's pretty familiar with the history of Las Vegas and some of the big players here in town. He's pretty well connected, knows a lot of people. Um, Steve Wynn didn't want this book to be written and published because he thought it was going to paint him in an unsavory way, which it kind of does. It makes a lot of connections between him and organized crime figures, money skimming, extortion, money laundering, stuff like that. Um, he sued to have the book not published, and he actually won. He ran the publishing company bankrupt because he filed such a large lawsuit against them. And then another publishing company bought the rights to the book, and they ended up getting it published. So the book, it wasn't written by Steve Wynn, but it has a lot of quotes from him, from interviews and other stories that had been done about him over the years. It also quotes a lot of other public figures in Las Vegas and hospitality professionals, casino people, executives, presidents, stuff like that. Um, the book starts out talking about Steve Wynn's history. He grew up on the East Coast. His father ran a small but successful bingo parlor, and this is where Steve first got a little taste of the gaming industry. His parents wanted him to be a doctor or a lawyer, so they put him through Ivy League education, and when he came out, he just wanted to work at the bingo parlor. When he was young, I think about 12 years old, his dad had brought him out to Las Vegas to, he was trying to open a bingo parlor in the Silver Slipper Casino. And when they were here, the book says Steve Wynn fell in love with Vegas, and he knew then that he wanted to come to Las Vegas and make it big like he was seeing other people do. So his father died when he was around 20 years old, and Steve Wynn took over the bingo parlor and continued to run it successfully. But he was paying off some of his father's gambling debts, and through doing this, he started meeting a lot of new connections who were involved with organized crime and also involved with the mob out in Las Vegas. And the book says that through these connections, Steve Wynn was able to come out to Las Vegas, and he ended up buying into the Frontier Casino. He acquired 5% of the hotel right before it was sold. So that was his first big hit, first big profit in the gaming industry. And then while he was sitting on this money, he went to a friend of his named Thomas, Mr. Thomas, who was running a bank here, Nevada Valley Bank, and asked him for a loan, said, I need something to do. I'm bored. I need a project to work on. So Thomas helped him to acquire the company, which is now Southern Nevada Wine and Spirits. And Steve Wynn ran that for a couple years and then sold that. And he went to Thomas again and said, I need another loan. I need an investor. I need to find something bigger to do. And he ended up buying a small piece of land right next to Caesar's Palace from Howard Hughes for just over $1 million, and then came up with some plans to build a small resort there. The land was thought to be too small to build on. And once he published these plans, Caesar's Palace, they didn't want that, so they ended up buying the property from him for just over $2 million. So he made another big profit. Um, the book says that most of Steve Wynn's deals happen like that. The author kind of says they were shady deals. They were not done in a professional manner. But others say that Steve Wynn himself, he's been quoted as saying he just seeks opportunity and he's willing to take the risk right away. Part of it is just being in the right place at the right time. After that, he invested in the Golden Nugget downtown, which was just a seedy little casino at the time. And then he turned it into pretty much the Golden Nugget we know today. And he was competing with the other big properties, Caesar's Palace, Frontier, the Tropicana, which were on the strip, and he was competing from downtown, which was considered tough to do. He then opened the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, But he had trouble getting a gaming license there because at the time he was being investigated in Las Vegas for money laundering and drug trafficking through the Golden Nugget. But he eventually got the license in New Jersey and made that the most successful property in New Jersey. And then tried to open a casino, invest in a casino in the UK, but they would not give him a gaming license because of his background here in the States with all the charges of money laundering. Um, he then sold all of his Gold Nugget shares and opened the Mirage, built the Mirage, and they say he used a bunch of junk bonds for the financing of the Mirage, but he made record profits when they opened, and that's what really started the new Las Vegas with the big resorts, all the restaurants, shows, bars, rooms, casinos, everything under one roof. And it was the first property in Las Vegas to have the villas that we hear about for the high rollers to stay in. So everyone, the rumor, especially throughout the book, is that Steve Wynn used mob money, junk bonds. It was all mob connected, opening the Mirage. Um, and Steve Wynn actually went through a little bit of a war in the media with the sheriff of Las Vegas because he'd always donated so much money to the sheriff, and they were pretty friendly. And then the sheriff started kind of slandering Steve Wynn's and harassing some of his guests when they arrived at the airport who were thought to be connected to organized crime. And Steve Wynn didn't like that. So they kind of had a little media war go on. And then he opened the Treasure Island, and then from there went on to the Bellagio. The book kind of ends talking about a case where Steve Wynn's daughter was kidnapped from her home one night after she got home from work, and the captors demanded cash in a bag, which Steve Wynn immediately got and dropped off. He paid them off to get her back. Um, the book kind of talks about how people thought that this was just more of his money laundering, a way for him to move cash out of the casino, the way he was willing to pay the money so quickly up front without going through the police. Um, the book, throughout, the impression I got is that the journalist, the author, is not the biggest fan of Steve Wynn. It kind of talks about how everything that he's done has been done in a kind of off the books kind of way, a way that not everyone in business wants their business conducted. But I don't think that you can argue the fact that Steve Wynn is one of the most successful people in hospitality and gaming to this day. The book ends in the 90s, so it doesn't really talk about his properties Wynn and Encore and his move over to China. But I don't necessarily agree with the opinion of the author of this book. He seems kind of jaded and almost jealous in a way. But the book has a lot of information about money, about shares, how he uses stocks and stockholders to fund his properties. And the one thing about the author is he does give credit where credit is due, in the fact that all of Steve Wynn's properties have been hugely successful, made record profits right away. But one thing that I got from the book, even though it doesn't paint him in the best light, it kind of can be motivational in the fact that he was a kid who came from not much but was able to build such a large empire by just being ambitious and not afraid to take risks and always paying attention to detail within hospitality. And I think that's very important for us as managers to realize that there is success to be had out there. We just have to be willing to work for it, not afraid to take risks.